As a boy, I often wondered how and why God created this world. Years later, this is my understanding, so please, sue me if you don't like it.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was.
Hey, welcome to Earth. It's full of amazing stuff, but why is it all here? The Bible has an answer. In the beginning, before anything existed, before there was time or space, there was God. God is everywhere, in every moment, and He is the essence of being itself. He doesn't need anything, yet He chose to create the world. But, at first, it wasn't like you see it today. It was dark, empty, and formless. Then God said, "Let there be light." And bam, there was light. And it was good. So, God separated the light from the darkness. And now, it's time to name things. Water below, water above, separated. Now, dry land appears. And guess what? Life starts, plants first, but they start cleaning up the air. Now, we can see the sun, moon, and stars. These will be helpful. Next, animals. Water creatures, flying creatures, land creatures. And then, God makes His greatest creation yet, humankind. He created a person named Adam, gave him an amazing garden, but Adam was still lonely. So God created Eve, a partner for Adam. They were made from the same stuff, yet different enough to form a relationship. God gave them lots of trees to enjoy, but two were especially important. They could eat from one, the tree of life, and live forever. But the other, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they were told not to eat from it, because if they did, they'd die. Seems easy, right? Well, a snake, who turns out to be the devil, told Eve that eating from that tree would make her like God, and that God was holding back from them. Eve fell for it, and Adam did too. So they ate from the tree, and just like that, humanity failed God's test. They lost access to the tree of life, meaning death entered the world. Humanity had chosen Satan over God. And God could have ended it right there, but instead, He promised one day Satan would be destroyed by one of their own descendants. Adam and Eve had kids. Maybe they'd do better, right? Well, Cain, their son, was jealous of his brother Abel because Abel trusted God more. God warned Cain, but Cain didn't listen, and he killed Abel. The curse of sin kept spreading. People sinned more, and evil increased. So God chose a man named Noah. He wasn't perfect, but he had faith in God. God told Noah to build a big boat because a flood was coming to wipe out the evil. People laughed at Noah until the flood came, and only Noah and his family survived. After the flood, God set a rainbow in the sky as a sign of His promise. He wouldn't destroy the world like that again. But people were still imperfect. They tried building a huge tower to reach God, but it was out of pride. So, God confused their languages, causing people to scatter into different nations. Now, God wanted one nation devoted to Him. So, He chose Abraham to be the father of His people. God promised Abraham a nation that would fix the world. God promised Abraham descendants as numerous as the stars. Abraham was skeptical, since his wife Sarah was very old, but he still believed. Unfortunately, Abraham made mistakes, like lying about his wife being his sister. Still, he had a son, Isaac, who had a son, Jacob, who God renamed Israel, meaning struggled with God. Jacob had 12 sons, and they would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob's sons were a mess. They even sold their brother Joseph into slavery. But while Joseph was in Egypt, God gave him the ability to save the land from famine. Eventually, Joseph forgave his brothers, and Egypt welcomed the Israelites. For a while, everything was great. But, as the Israelites grew in number, the Egyptians grew fearful and enslaved them. If you enjoy this content, please don't forget to like and subscribe as we continue to grow this new channel. We aim to bring quality content, and your support will help us out a lot. Now, let's get back to our story. One Israelite, Moses, grew up in Egypt, but when he saw an Egyptian hurting an Israelite, he killed the Egyptian. He fled to the desert, lived with a sheep farmer, and got married. But one day, God spoke to him through a burning bush telling him to return to Egypt and free his people. Moses returned and told Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Pharaoh said, "No." So God sent plagues, frogs, locusts, darkness, and even the death of Egypt's firstborn sons. Finally, Pharaoh let them go, but changed his mind and sent his army after them. The Israelites were trapped by the Red Sea. Moses raised his staff and the waters parted, allowing them to escape. But when Pharaoh's army tried to follow, they drowned. Afterward, Moses went up a mountain to receive God's law, and the people, while waiting, made a golden calf to worship. Moses came back, was furious, and broke the tablets. He went back up the mountain, and God gave him new tablets, adding more to his covenant with the people. God promised to give the people the law and the land, but there was still a problem: faith. When the Israelites were close to the promised land, they saw the mighty Canaanites and were afraid. Because of their lack of faith, they wandered in the desert for 40 years. Moses couldn't go in either because he sinned too. But Joshua, Moses' successor, led them into the land, and they began to conquer it. They finally settled in the land, but things didn't stay peaceful for long. They asked for a king, so God gave them Saul. But Saul was a poor king. Then came David, a shepherd boy who defeated Goliath with a slingshot. David became a hero and later a king, but he too sinned. He had Bathsheba's husband killed so he could marry her. Though God punished David, he promised that one of his descendants would be the eternal king. David's son, Solomon, began well, asking God for wisdom. He built the magnificent temple to honor God. But Solomon also sinned, marrying foreign women and worshiping their gods. The kingdom split after Solomon's reign, and both parts, Israel and Judah, became corrupt. Eventually, Israel fell to Assyria, and Judah to Babylon. But even in exile, God's prophets kept the hope alive that one day the Messiah would come. The Israelites returned from exile, rebuilt their temple, but were still waiting for the eternal kingdom. Prophets spoke of a coming king, born in Bethlehem, who would suffer for the people's sins and would be both human and God. Then, one day, an angel appeared to a young woman named Mary, telling her she would have a son, and his kingdom would never end. Mary gave birth to Jesus, who was named Emmanuel, meaning God with us. The prophecy was being fulfilled. Wise men came from afar to honor him, but King Herod, fearing a rival king, ordered Jesus' death. Mary and Joseph fled to Egypt, but when it was safe, they returned. Jesus grew up, performed miracles, and taught about the kingdom of God, a kingdom where the oppressed are liberated and the poor inherit the earth. Jesus showed the kingdom by healing the sick, casting out demons, and forgiving sins. More and more people followed him, but the Pharisees, who focused on following the rules, opposed him. They wanted to restore the kingdom of Israel, but Jesus' kingdom was about something more profound. Eventually, the Pharisees plotted to kill him. If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button. By doing so, you're helping out our new channel and would be greatly helping us out. Now, back to the last segment of this video. Jesus entered Jerusalem as a king, but in a humble way. The people welcomed him, but the Pharisees were furious. Jesus knew what was coming, so he gathered his disciples for a final meal. He broke bread, saying it was his body, and poured wine, saying it was his blood, marking a new covenant. He promised forgiveness of sins. One of his disciples betrayed him, leading to his arrest and crucifixion. Jesus could have stopped it, but he chose not to. He was the only one who didn't sin, and his death paid for the sins of the world. Jesus was buried, but on the third day, he rose from the dead, proving he was the Messiah, the king who defeated Satan. Jesus appeared to his followers, showing he was alive, and gave them a mission to spread the good news of his kingdom. He ascended into heaven, but promised he would return. Until then, his kingdom is being built through the church, and when he comes back, he will make all things new. Jesus' resurrection means that he will raise everyone from the dead one day. Satan and death will be defeated forever. We will live in a perfect world, and the tree of life will be ours again. Everything exists for Jesus and his kingdom. The question is, are you ready to be part of it?